Hello, my name's Douglas. I'm sharing with you what's been on my mind over the last few months. It's a video that's in three sections. Sometimes it's interesting to look back, and I guess I'm at a point where I can start to look back on portions of my life. One of the things I always remember as a child was on a Sunday. It was generally quite a busy day with church, and sometimes my dad was a bit more involved in how church ran during a particular day. But one of the things that often happened was on a Sunday afternoon we would put on some records. Now, in terms of those, some of you will remember them. They're a black shiny thing that goes onto a player, a bit like the equivalent of an MP4. In terms of the records, it always struck me that one of the ones that I always remember, I think it was somebody called Burl Ives. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He was a singer and an actor, but one of the songs that was sung was Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho. And I have to say, Joshua is one of the people who has always fascinated me. Joshua was a young leader under Moses. He had learned from Moses, and I think one of the things when he became leader in his own right was what started to mark him out was his ability to listen to God. And one of the things that always has fascinated me is that Joshua went with the Israeli people to Jericho, and Jericho was a city. And I'm just going to read it to you just so you get the full idea. It says, "Now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the Israelites. No one went out and no one came in. Then the Lord said to Joshua, 'See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men.'" And I think when I read that, and recently, what I was really struck by was the fact that they haven't even fought the battle, but God's actually said, that they've got the victory. And I think for me, what it demonstrates is the importance of being able to listen to God. And I think when you read a bit more into it, that actually God fights the battle in an unusual way. And I think that's sometimes one of the things that we often have an ability to do something. And I'm more than conscious that in terms of a lot of the things I do, I'm always looking for, here's the issue and what's the solution. And I think what God's been speaking to me about is, in that situation, we're saying, what is the solution? How do you overcome this? Is to actually listen to him and to focus on what he wants, because sometimes the way I might go about it is not necessarily the way that God would go about it. And of course, as the song went, Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho and the walls came down. I'm conscious that some of you will know I work in educational management. And one of the things, that I'm always conscious of is that I work within a sector which gives individuals opportunities. And I think one of the things, I don't know what your experience has been, during lockdown or as we start to come out of lockdown. But I think one of the things that is always my passion is that I'm very conscious that, whether, and it says in Proverbs, rich or poor, God made everyone. And I think one of the things is that I'm very conscious that in my work, that there is a real opportunity to help individuals to improve and to be able to, change their situation. And I think one of the things I've seen, as we were going into lockdown, what it highlighted to me was we had a fairly different experience with a number of our students. We had some students who had IT equipment, others who didn't. And one of my passions was to make sure that we were able to provide IT equipment, provide internet access, and that's been one of the things that I've spent a lot of time focusing on during the summer, is the fact that we need to make sure that we don't have students who are in digital poverty. So as we're about to start into what for us is a new academic year, I'm really conscious, that we've been able to spend funding that we've got to be able to ensure that the students have a good experience. And I think one of the things I'm really focused on is that, I'm talking about what I do, and my passion for equality, but I'm very conscious across the UK and across Scotland. We really need to pray for those who are in workplaces as life has changed, and pray for those people who are going into education for this week. So some of it's going to be really different from what they've previously experienced. They're not necessarily going to be in school all of the time, they're not necessarily going to be in college, and for those that are going to university or continuing in university, they're often going to be outside the walls of the university for a significant period. So during this week, I would really ask that you really just focus and join with me in praying for those who are starting in education. I think some of you are aware that I do some running. Over the last 3 years, I've increasingly been running short races, which last for about 100 metres or last for 200 metres. Sometimes if I'm really pushed, I run 400 metres. In terms of those races, one of the things that you learn is that if you want to compete, the thing that you've got to do is you've got to be able to pull everything together for the actual day. That's a whole different story. My stomach is always butterflies. I'm always nervous. But one of the key things in the whole thing is Paul talks about, if you're going to compete as an athlete, you've got to follow the rules. And he's, it's in a section where he's talking about, endurance and perseverance. And I think that's one of the things that, I'm always really conscious, is that sometimes, that there is not always, there's the high experience. If you run a race and you do particularly well, it's always a great feeling. But sometimes that what you need to be able to do is you just need to be able to get yourself out and train and go and do it. Do the early morning start, and some of it's just very humdrum. And I think in terms of relationship with God, there is the highs, there is the bit where you go, wow, that was fantastic, but often there is the bit where you've got to persevere, you've got to endure, you've got to read, you've got to pray. And in terms of that, what happens is you push in and you are able to listen to God. And I think often, I don't claim to be a fantastic athlete, but I think the comparison as an athlete is often really important. It always makes me think that, at this point, I really need to persevere. I need to keep doing what I'm doing. I need to be able to listen to God, and I need to, seek out and persevere to find the time to spend with Him.